You are standing in the upper tier of a modern multi-billion-dollar stadium. It is 3 hours after the final whistle. The roar of 60,000 people has faded into a haunting, metallic silence. The pitch is illuminated by the eerie yellow glow of grow lights, casting long, skeletal shadows across the grass. You are alone in your section. There is no steward in sight, no police officer, no fellow fan. Yet, as you turn to leave, a cold shiver traces the line of your spine. You feel a prickle on the back of your neck. You feel a gaze, heavy and unrelenting, fixed directly on you. You feel watched because you are. But the eyes watching you aren't human. In the modern sporting cathedral, the feeling of being watched is no longer a psychological quirk or a remnant of evolutionary paranoia. It is a biological response to a very real, very expensive infrastructure of total observation. We have entered the era of the panopticon stadium. This is an environment where your every movement, from the way you hold your scarf to the duration of your blink, is captured, digitized, and analyzed. The governing bodies call it safety. The clubs call it fan engagement. The reality is far more clinical. The sport we love has been hollowed out to make room for a massive, invisible machine. This machine doesn't just watch for trouble. It watches for profit. It watches for patterns. It watches because, in the eyes of the modern football institution, you are no longer a supporter. You are a data point. And a data point is most valuable when it doesn't know it's being harvested. Why do you feel watched when no one is there? Because the architecture of the game has been redesigned to ensure that no one ever needs to be there for you to be seen. The stadium is awake, it is breathing, and it is counting every second of your existence. The transition from the wild, organic terraces of the 1980s to the sterile, high-tech hubs of the 2020s was sold to us as a necessity of progress. We were told that the tragedy of Hillsborough and the chaos of the hooligan era required a total overhaul of how we occupy space. But the numbers tell a different story. If this were truly about safety, the surveillance would stop at the gates. Instead, it follows you into the bathroom, the club shop, and the betting app on your phone. To understand the scale of this, we have to look at the cold, hard mathematics of the modern matchday. In a standard Premier League stadium, built within the last decade, there are, on average, between 400 and 600 high-definition CCTV cameras. That is one camera for every 100 spectators. But these aren't the grainy, black-and-white units of the past. These are 4K multi-sensor arrays capable of zooming in on a single seat from across the pitch, with enough clarity to read the text on your phone screen. Consider the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The organizers didn't just install cameras, they built a central nervous system. At the Aspire Command and Control Center, technicians monitored over 15,000 cameras across 8 stadiums. They used OWL-driven biometric gates that could identify a face in a crowd of 80,000 in less than 3 seconds. The ratio of cameras to humans was unprecedented. For every minute of football played, the system generated terabytes of behavioral data. The numbers don't lie approach reveals a shocking financial commitment to this gaze. The global smart stadium market was valued at approximately $14 billion in 2023. It is projected to reach nearly $40 billion by 2030. This isn't spending on grass, or youth academies, or better pie crusts. This is spending on the Internet of Things. It is spending on LiDAR sensors, facial recognition software, and sentiment analysis algorithms. In 2019, Cardiff City and Swansea City became the testing grounds for a new kind of policing. South Wales Police deployed live facial recognition, LFR, at the Derby. The technology scans faces in real time, comparing them against a watch list. The error rates were staggering. At one point, over 90% of the matches were false positives. Yet the technology was not withdrawn. It was expanded. Why? Because the institutional power of the football club has shifted. The club is no longer a community asset. It is a landlord of a high-security data center. When you walk through the turnstile, you are entering a zone of reduced expectation of privacy. The numbers suggest that you are being tracked by an average of 14 different sensors before you even reach your seat. Your phone pings the stadium Wi-Fi. Your digital ticket is logged. Your face is captured by the entry point FRT. Your gait, the specific way you walk, is analyzed by behavioral AI to detect anomalous movement. This is the proof of the invisible gaze. You feel watched because the environment is saturated with sensors that do not blink. A human steward gets tired. A police officer looks away. An algorithm is eternal. It is the perfection of the gaze. And as the numbers of these sensors increase, the human presence on the concourses decreases. This is the ultimate irony. The more you are watched, the more alone you feel. The no one, in the title, isn't a ghost. It is the absence of human accountability in a system of total digital oversight. But we must ask the question that the governing bodies avoid. Cui bono? Who benefits? If the goal were purely safety, the data would be deleted after the match. It isn't. The data is the new oil of the sporting world. The deep dive into the financial structures of UEFA and the Premier League reveals a disturbing trend. The monetization of the fan has reached a ceiling in terms of ticket prices and shirt sales. There is only so much a working-class supporter can pay for a seat. To continue the trajectory of infinite growth required by private equity owners and state-backed sovereigns, the clubs had to find a new product. That product is you. Your feeling of being watched is actually the sensation of being appraised. In the boardroom, this is called hyper-personalization. By tracking where you stand in the concourse, which advertisements you look at on the digital boards, and how long you wait in line for a drink, the stadium builds a fan avatar. The financial expansion of this is terrifying. Third-party data brokers now buy behavioral heat maps from stadium operators. This data tells them that fans in Section 202 are 15% more likely to click on a gambling ad if they've just seen their team concede a goal. It tells them that fans who spend more than 12 minutes in the club shop are prime targets for high-interest credit card offers. This wasn't a series of isolated security upgrades. It was the systematic transformation of a supporter into a quantifiable asset. The history of this shift can be traced back to the post-Taylor Report era, but it accelerated wildly during the pandemic. When stadiums were empty, clubs invested heavily in contactless and frictionless technology. They marketed it as a health measure. In reality, it was the final nail in the coffin of fan anonymity. By removing cash and physical tickets, they ensured that every single transaction and movement was tied to a verified identity. The institutional power of FIFA and UEFA has used the security narrative to bypass civil liberty laws. In many jurisdictions, the stadium is a private-public hybrid. This allows them to use surveillance technology that would be illegal on a high street. They have created a legal vacuum where the fan is a subject, not a citizen. Let's look at the fan ID systems, like the Haya card in Qatar, or the proposed fan pass in various European leagues. These are not just tickets, they are digital leashes. They track your location via GPS. They link to your biometric data. They are the ultimate manifestation of the institution's desire for total legibility. They want a world where no fan is a stranger. But what does this do to the soul of the game? What does it do to the feeling of being in the stands? The psychological impact of the unseen watcher is well documented in social science. It leads to self-censorship. When you know you are being recorded by an owl that can detect aggressive body language, you change how you cheer, you change how you protest, you change how you exist. The organic, chaotic energy of the football crowd, the very thing that makes the sport the most popular on earth, is being strangled by the need for data-driven order. The numbers show a direct correlation between the increase in stadium surveillance and the decrease in organic fan protests. It is harder to hold a banner against an owner when the camera above you has already logged your seat number, your face, and your credit card details. The feeling of being watched is a deterrent. It is a soft power tool used by the governing bodies to ensure a compliant, brand-friendly atmosphere. We are witnessing the death of the spectator and the birth of the user. In a stadium, a spectator is part of a collective. A user is an isolated unit of consumption. The surveillance infrastructure is designed to break the collective into units. It wants to know what want, so it can sell it to while ensuring you don't do anything to disrupt the broadcast product. The wider implication of this goes far beyond the 90 minutes of a match. The football stadium has always been a laboratory for social control. What starts on the terraces eventually moves to the shopping mall, the workplace, and the street. If we accept total surveillance in the name of sport, we accept it everywhere. The governing bodies are essentially running a multi-year pilot program for the smart city of the future. A city where feeling watched is the default state of being. A city where the absence of a human presence doesn't mean you are alone. It just means the authority has become invisible. The specific sadness of the modern fan is the realization that the stadium no longer belongs to them. It belongs to the censors. It belongs to the cloud servers in Virginia or Dublin that store the digital ghost of your Saturday afternoon. We are paying for the privilege of being monitored. We are buying tickets to our own interrogation. The institutions, the FIFAs, the UEFAs, the billionaire owners, they don't fear the fan anymore. They don't need to. You can't rebel against a system that knows your heart rate is spiking before you even realize you're angry. You can't hide in a crowd that has been digitally disassembled into 80,000 individual streams of data. The numbers don't lie, and the numbers say that the era of the anonymous fan is over. The stadium is a machine for seeing. It is a cold, glass and steel eye that never shuts. When you sit in your seat next Saturday, look up. Don't look at the scoreboard. Look at the corners of the roof. Look at the small, black domes tucked under the rafters. Look at the sensors embedded in the seatbacks. They are there. They are always there. You feel watched because the system has decided that your privacy is a fair price to pay for the experience. But whose experience are we talking about? Yours or the algorithms? The modern football stadium is the most monitored space on the planet, outside of a high-security prison. We have traded the soul of the terrace for the safety of the spreadsheet. We have allowed the beautiful game to become a beautiful data-harvesting operation. And as the lights go down and the fans stream out, the cameras stay on. They watch the empty seats. They watch the wind blow a discarded program across the concrete. They watch, waiting for the next unit of data to walk through the gate. The silence of an empty stadium is a lie. It is humming with the sound of servers processing your identity. The feeling of being watched is the only honest thing left in the building. It is your instinct screaming at you that something is wrong, that you are being hunted by a gaze you cannot meet. We are no longer just fans. We are the fuel for a machine that never sleeps. The next time you feel that prickle on your neck in an empty concourse, don't look for a person. There is no one there. There is only the gaze. Is the game still worth the price of being known?